Well, hello everybody. How you doing? Dave Fennoy here, and it being Wednesday, it's another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. I'm a little bit tired right now. I got back from Dragon Con in Atlanta, which is, for me, I think it's really one of the best cons out there, conventions. The first time I went, it was about, I think, 2014. It was about 75,000 people. It's now over 100,000 people. And what I like about it, it's fan driven. It's all volunteers helping you out, and the fans just come and have a great time, which allows me and the other people there to have a great time. And it's one of the benefits if you're somebody that does cartoons, video games, anime, that it's another stream of income. Well, maybe not stream, but every now and then you get some money dumped on you when you're meeting friends and family and fans at a con. I want to clean up a couple of things from last week. Somebody asked me, how do you keep track of your money for taxes? And I could not think of the program I use, which is QuickBooks. You know, sometimes things just leave your mind, but that's it. Also talked about guest Jill Kershaw, who was a casting director. She's in the middle of moving and had a little health problem, so we're going to have her on later. A reminder, Backyard Jazz is coming. Going to be doing that at the end of this month. That's the Sunday the 29th. There'll be more on that and other things. Let's see, say hello to some folks as you get your questions in there. Christina Frank, how you doing? Thomas, what's going on, man? Thomas, you are there. So, thank you. And you asked such great questions. Michael Glover, how you doing? Sam Mowry. Linda, how you doing? Julie O'Malley, what's going on? Let's start getting those questions in there. And while you're getting those questions in there, let me talk about a couple of things. I was on a session today for a video game, and in a little downtime, the engineer who I've worked with for years, we were talking about teaching voiceover, and he said, well, what do you teach in voiceover for video games? And I said, well, it depends on who I'm teaching. I teach them the same thing, but we're coming at it from two different directions. For people who may have had a voiceover career, but they don't come from an acting background, it's basically an acting lesson. And for those who have had an acting background, maybe they're on camera, on stage, I teach them how to make the characters come to life without the ordinary tools that they have, which another actor, lines that are memorized, costume, blocking, all those things help you. When you're an actor, when you're standing in front of a microphone with just the words on the page, you have to create it all up here. And once again, we'll give you this is the secret. Now, why am I giving you the secret without you paying me any money? Because you probably can't do it without some guidance. But I would like you to have the secret, which is, what's the pre-life? What happened just before the character's going to say what they're going to say? What's the character thinking? What's the character feeling? What is the character doing? And who is the character talking to? And what is that relationship? You can get through every script in a video game, actually in animation, and a lot of other work, commercials that works. Most of the time we're playing some kind of character, even if we're the spokesperson. We have a point of view. There's somebody that we're talking to, something we're talking about. How do we feel about that? What's our worldview? What's our relationship with the person we're talking to? Are we mirroring some of what we want the listener to feel? All those kinds of things. I was working with a student today. Hey, Randy Thomas, how you doing? And once again, love it. Oh, thank you. You're looking good too. One of the things I really love is the fact that a lot of people, there's Bill Holmes, a lot of people who have been doing this business for a long time and really know what they're talking about and are also very fine teachers will drop in, and sometimes a question might be asked and sometimes they'll pop in with an answer too. And I always suggest to people, don't just work with me, work with a number of different teachers. Not just because they're going to tell you something different. As a matter of fact, they're probably not going to tell you anything different. They might use a different language. They might phrase it differently. But you want to find people with whom you understand what they're saying and they can pull it out of you. I was working with a student today, and I get this a lot, especially guys who have been in radio, and they've got that radio voice and everything is there. Excuse me, goodness. And they have learned how to make the words dance, how to make the words special. Well, in real life, that's not what we do. In real life, we're just talking to one another, and what's coming out is what we're thinking, what we're feeling. And when you are making the words dance and you're elongating them and you're hitting them this way and that way, it does not come off as real. You do not come off as believable. But when that's what you've been doing for 10, 12, 20 years, it's really difficult sometimes to back off the over-enunciation, back off of the word elongation, back off of the hitting of the words that you want to emphasize, and really pay attention to what are you saying. And I did an exercise with him. I took a piece of copy and we went line by line. What are they saying in this line? And surprisingly, he couldn't quite tell me. He could tell me kind of what the overall message was. But you have to know what's being said in each line. You have to figure out now what might be the micro attitudes, the micro emotions that you're trying to get across in each line. It's always a story that's taking you someplace. And you have to think of every voiceover as a conversation, that whoever's listening, you have to say what it is you're saying and then give them a moment, a second, a millisecond to respond, to think about it, to answer. And it might take that long, but sometimes if we just keep going and blowing through it, you're not going to hear it. And when you've been trained to fit, 40 words of copy, 40 seconds worth of copy into 30 seconds, you have this tendency to always want to speed up. And you get that in radio all the time. You have this tendency to want to push it faster. Take your time, relax. Even with copy, that is, do it slow first. Do it at a pace that you feel like, oh, this sounds normal first. And what's normal for each person is a little different. There are people who talk fast, and then there are people who don't talk so fast. So do it as you. Do it in your rhythm. You might have to speed it up. You might have to slow it down. And really, really, really pay attention to what is actually being said. What does this sentence mean? Not just, hey, how can I make these words sound wonderful? All right, let's get some Julie O'Malley. When acting voice in video games, is it better to be bigger than life, or is it better to be subtle, or does it depend on the game and the client? Well, it depends on the game a lot. Some games are just going to be bigger than others. You take a game like the Walking Dead game, things can be kind of subtle. I've often said that different genres of voiceover live in different size boxes. If you're doing trailers are in a box that's very small. Everything is right here. If you're doing video games or animation, it's a big box. You can be very small, you can be very big, and both in the same game. On a game I was working on today, I was doing what they call battle chatter. And whenever you see that, you go, oh no, because that's a lot of shouting. Not all shouting. There's whispering, normal, and then shouting. And the battle chatter, if you do it too long, and especially in the shouting, it's going to wear you out. But you have to make each one of these very short lines make sense and fall within exactly what you're doing. Wait a minute, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, you have to know exactly what you're saying. I took some notes for myself, and now I've lost myself. Where was I? Subtle or big? Think about your life for a minute. Sometimes you're very subtle, depending on, are you tired? Is it late at night and you're just being quiet? for the courtesy of people, or in a video game, maybe you're being very quiet because you're hiding from a monster. Or maybe in the video game, you're very tired. But maybe you're very big because you're screaming, help, get away. So you have to look at what the situation is, because it could be both in the same game and from scene to scene. Now, you do want to know the style of the game. And one of the things I begin talking about in my workshops for video games is the first place to start your investigation is what kind of game it is. What's the genre? And just like movies are different, the feeling of romantic comedy is very different than the feeling of a post-apocalyptic movie about the aftermath of the destruction of humankind, which is different than a buddy adventure movie. They all have a different energy. So you want to find what is this game closest to and bring that kind of energy. There are some video games that the style of acting is going to be more stage, more Shakespearean. And then there's the style of acting sometimes it's a little more dark. And then sometimes it's funny. Whoa, what's going on? And, fortunately, I've had a chance to be in all those kinds of games. But you have to start with what's the big picture on that game. Then bring it down to who is this character? What is this character all about? What does this character care about? What's this character afraid of? And the simple things. How old is this character? Good character, bad character, complicated character. Some are more complicated than others. Sometimes you'll have a character description that's, half a page long and then 5 lines to bring all of that out in. And you just can't bring it all out. You have to find what you think is most important and do that. And then there are other times you'll have just a few lines describing the character. And often that's because the type of character is, much more shallow than some others. We don't need to know about this particular character's relationship with his mother and what happened to him as a child that scarred him for life, because probably more stereotypical, probably easier to do. You want to give the character as much as it needs, not any more, but definitely not any less. Okay, when editing auditions, how much space do you leave between separate lines? I typically go for about 1 second to 1.5 seconds. You want to give them enough time that they kind of get the feeling that they've taken it in and responded to it, but not so much time that they get bored. And we have a very short attention span these days. And often, if you give them like 3, 4, 5 seconds, they'll be pushing the button on to the next audition because they think it's over. Michael Glove. So, did I understand that you said if you get an audition that is 30-second spot, don't worry about the time, just do it natural first, then do one in 30 seconds? That is what I shoot for. You understood that. A lot of times, the mechanics of trying to do too much copy to fit in 30 seconds, and of course my dog Clementine, named for the character from the Walking Dead game that I was in, is scratching at the door. Will you excuse me for just a few seconds? Okay. Here we come. Come on. All right. Doggies on parade. All right. Now they're going to get under the table there with me. All right. Where was I? Here's my thought on it. The first thing you want to do is know exactly what you're saying and be able to say it in as conversational a manner as possible. And if you're trying to concentrate on getting all these words in 30 seconds, that's where the focus of your brain is. Let's find out what the hell it is you're saying first. Find out what is the feel of it. What's the real message here? Then you can pick it up. Another thing, you get that batteries not included, member FDIC, all those disclaimers that have to be fast. Sometimes you're not a person that talks fast. Well, the way to do it, say it a few times, slow and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until you get it. Don't be upset because the first time you didn't, because you'll be reading those words and the seeing, recognizing, understanding, and saying those words really fast the first time may not work because you're concentrating so much on the mechanics of doing it. Take your time. Read it a few times, get it in your mouth a few times. It's just like anything else. The more you practice, the faster it can be. All right. Hope that answered that, Michael Glover. Luc de Villers. Hello, Dave. Do you always got all the time you need on a voice acting for game, or sometime do you have the client asking to wrap up fast and not leaving you enough time to get comfortable or voicing a character? What would be your best advice when we're running against the time during a session and to still give good performance? Thank you. Well, in video games, they expect you to be on it now. One, if you auditioned, you got a good sense of the character when you auditioned, which is why they're pulling you in. Because the quality of your voice, how it fits with the other voices in the game, your performance as the character they felt was believable enough. They feel like you understand who this character is enough. They're going to bring you in and give you lots more lines with this character. But you gotta be able to react. We are both artists and technicians. They want you to bring that thing that you do that takes the words off the page and brings the character to life and will allow the game player to really imagine not just the picture, but imagine that this is the voice of that character. And they expect you to do it very fast. You're not going to get more than 2 or 3 takes on a line. If you're getting in there where you're 4 and 5 and 10 and 12 takes, you're not ready for prime time. So get ready for prime time. You might have a director that doesn't know how to direct and pull from you what you want, but that's kind of rare. Usually it's you if you're not getting it fast enough. No, I'm not sure you're saying, Luke, that this has happened to you or you're worried about it happening to you. It does happen. Unfortunately, often now, because things happen like they'll hire a movie star or television star because they think, hey, this guy's got a lot of people are going to want to buy our game because we have this person in it. And though the person may be a good actor, the specific skills to create a character in a video game, they don't have. They're a little bit crippled because there's not another actor that they're bouncing energy off of. There's not blocking. They're not in costume. They haven't memorized the script. They have to read the words off the page. And that's very different than you've got it memorized, you're walking over here, you've got the costume on, you are responding to another actor. When those tools are taken away, it takes something else to bring that character off. Okay. Hey, Camilla, how you doing? Thompson Hall. Mike Smith, what's going on, man? Andre, Brandon, Carmen Cruz, Charity James. That was a good question, though. If you're running against time, and I'm going back to your question here, Luke, if you're running against time, that you don't have enough time to get this done, it might not, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, it might not be your fault. There just might be too many lines they need to bring you back in. Don't always think because you ran out of time that it's your fault. But if you're doing 5, 6, 7 takes and people are trying to piece a little bit from this take and that take together, it's you. So always get your acting game up. Now, when you start, you're not going to be as good as you will be later on. The more you do anything, the more you develop a comfort with it. The old 10,000 hours, as they say, that you need. So you're always going to be better than you start. I find this with demos too. You make a demo, you've spent that money, and when you first get it, wow, man, my demo sounds so great. And once you start working, 6 months, a year later, your demo doesn't sound as good to you anymore. You don't feel like it's as good because you'll be a much better actor. There's nothing like actually doing the work to make you better. But you got to get yourself to a level where you can jump in the game and do the work. And I promise you that once you hit that level and they're hiring you, you will learn things naturally. Nobody's teaching them to you, but you'll learn things naturally on the job that nobody can teach you. Some things about how you operate, how you respond to direction and pressure. And you're going to go through some times that aren't good, don't feel good, and you're going to fail. And with that, I'll share you a failure I had. There is a great animation and video game director in town, Jenny McSwain, and this is years and years ago. I was auditioning for a general of some kind, and I was trying to make the general. I was putting on too much of a voice, and she just kept saying, "Hey, just make it a little more natural. Your voice is fine just the way it is." I didn't trust that I could bring the general out in my natural voice. I just kept making it a little too cartoony. I didn't know I was doing it as cartoony. And she just kept saying to me, just say it a little more. Back off of that cartoony voice and just say it a little more. And I didn't get the gig, but that always stuck with me. And over the course of the next 6 months, a year, I really started to work on, well, how do I find that voice, that feel of a character without pushing too hard? And that failure really helped me because I had to really examine my own method for characters. And one of the reasons I've been able to be in more than 400 games now is because my failure in that game and how that stuck with me. And clearly it's still with me. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Hey, Brandon, what's going on? Brandon from Dallas. Carmen Cruz, Heart Charity, Trakina, what's up? Hey, Charity, John Potter joined. You are welcome. Okay, looking for... Yo, real talk. Thank you, Roderick. What? Well, I had some other notes, but I think I've blown through them. Come on, somebody's got to have another question here. Kier Lance, what's going on, man? So Walking Dead Final Season 4 game, is it coming on iPad or Android? I think it is. And of course, now that I let the dogs in, now they want out. You're going to wait a little bit. Natalia, how are you? Can we record the first audition in our own studio, or do we need to go to their studio? If one gets the role, is it possible to record the role at home studio, or is it required to always record in the game studio? If there's, if your agent is sending you an audition to audition at home, of course you can record at home. Very rarely do they have you go into their studio to audition because they know so many of us have studios. They don't want to take the time or spend the money to bring people into a studio that they have to rent. Most video game companies don't have their own studios. They're hiring studios out, paying by the hour. So chances are 90% of the time you're going to be auditioning in your own studio. Now, there are from time to time callbacks. For a game I was in, Mafia 3, I had like 3-4 callbacks over the course of a year. It's like, wow, what is going on with this? And it was always at their studio after the very first audition I did at home. And they keep bringing me back and bringing me back and bringing me back. And I kept thinking, okay, a couple of months has gone by. Clearly I didn't get that, and I wanted to get that job. And they finally booked me, but not for the role they auditioned before. What was that all about? So expect to record at home, or maybe your agents, if you don't have a home studio, but not at the studio of that a gaming company is going to be hiring. They're going to hire that studio when they book you to do the job. Oh, come on, Clementine. Excuse me, back in a second. Dogs, you're driving me nuts. But I love to leave the door open. Sorry. Da-da-da-da. Do you Dave, do you do CHAR online voice training? I'm not sure what you're asking there. I do online voice training. Or are you asking what do I charge? It's $160 an hour for private coaching. But if you buy 5, you get them for the price of 4. And if that's something you want to do, go to my website, davefennoy.com. Book yourself on the Study VO chart. But let me say something about voice acting and voice lessons, especially to people who are just starting out. Before you pay me or anybody else any money, go to the free websites that a lot of us have. Dave Fennoy Training, these are there, and some other things are there on my YouTube page. Watch and listen to the very good teachers that are out there. I include myself. So you get a feel of what the jargon is, what the approach is. Begin to understand the jargon of voiceover and what people mean, so that when you start paying money, you're not spending time going, oh, what are they talking about? Oh, I don't quite understand that. You'll be a step ahead. I promise you. Get as much free information as possible before you start spending your money. You'll thank me for that later. Okay. Love you sense humor. You can some funny stuff naturally. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Michael. I think your auto correct is uncorrecting. When getting ready to do character animation, video game, and cartoon demos, how should they be significantly different? How should they be significantly different? Come on, you guys, you gotta help me with these questions. You gotta write better. I don't. What does he mean there? Yeah, how different should your characters be? Well, let me start with this. Your voice should be the hero of your demo. I can't tell you how many demos I've listened to that a person starts out with an accent they don't do so well, followed up by a monster voice that anybody could do, and then all through their demo, everything is so different from what their natural voice is that you never get a feel of who they are. And there's something we love about our favorite character actors, the rhythm of how they speak, how they make us feel. And if you never let your voice, or you don't let your voice out, your real voice, out enough in your demo, nobody's going to get a sense of who you are. And you may do a bunch of other crazy voices and accents pretty well, but without people getting a sense of who you are, they're not quite sure what to do with you. They're a little confused. So, yeah, you can put some accents in. Yeah, you can put some crazy voices in. But start with your voice, return to your voice time and time again, and end with your voice. Now, the kinds of characters I think you should do, you want to do some classic characters. There's a variety of them. There's heroes, there's villains, there's AI voices. But so many games these days are about normal people in extraordinary circumstances. Doctors, lawyers, dads, moms, just regular people who end up in this crazy world of whatever video game it is. And of course, yeah, there are lots of soldiers and fantasy type characters and superheroes. But you want to include some of those real characters in your video game demo. All right. Can you talk a bit about demos? I'm thinking a good place to start might be after you've identified your brand, read, listen to current campaigns. And so your version of that read, what's your take? Once again, I'll say each of you has something special. There's the thing that's special about you is your essence. Your voice comes out a certain way. There's a certain rhythm to the way you speak because of who you are, how you grew up, where you grew up, your level of education. All those things have made you who you are. And that's the thing, that essence that sometimes we don't recognize. But that's the thing that people are responding to. Think about your friends who you've had a conversation with them and you would describe their voice as, oh, she's so funny. Everything she says is just funny, even when she's not trying to be funny. Or, oh, whenever I talk to him, I feel so relaxed and calm afterwards. Okay, maybe that person doesn't know that. But if they were trying to do voiceover, that's the thing that you would tell them. Hey, listen, your voice has a very calming effect. And live with that. Go with that, because that's what's working. You want to find out who your essence is. Sometimes, especially with newbies, I'll say, hey, listen, talk to some friends of yours and ask, what do you think when I'm speaking? What are the adjectives and adverbs that come to mind when I'm talking to you, describing how listening to me makes you feel? Listening to my voice, what does that make you feel like? What does it make you think of? And if you get 5 or 10 people that are saying some of the same things, that's a clue to who you are as a voice, what your brand is. Oh boy, there was Seymour. Where was I? So, and then you're talking commercial campaigns. You want to make sure that the things you're doing as commercials are current. Sometimes people are trying to live with an audition, especially commercial audition, from 5 or 10 years ago. Well, there are products out there now that weren't in existence 5 or 10 years ago, and products that were in existence 5 or 10 years ago that are no longer with us. And if you've got one of those older products on, that's the first thing people are going to say, oh, well, this is old. This isn't. You want to make sure that your especially commercial demo is up to date. And when I say up to date, not just new, but you're talking about products that reflect the technology that we're in now, that reflect the style of speech that we're in now, the music you hear behind the commercials now, all of that. All right, Luke. Well, unfortunately, it did happen, and most of the time on a big game, when I work on an indie game, I always have a larger amount of time to ask questions about the character, try a few things, and this is why I will probably always do indie game. Have a more artistic and freedom. On AAA games, I even had directors say, let's have a one-shot session because we won't have time for re-recording. Hello, stress managing lessons. I've never been in a session where they're only going to give you one take. I'm having a hard time buying that a AAA game company is going to bring you in and then say, hey, listen, we just don't have enough time. We're only going to allow you one take. Doesn't make sense, doesn't compute for me. And I've done a lot of indie games. I've done a lot of AAA games. And yeah, a lot of the indie games are a little more adventurous in what they're doing. Maybe you have a little more time to find the character, sometimes because they're not as sure, because fewer people are working on it. Sometimes the scripts are, you're helping write the script and that kind of thing as you go along, or add this or take out that. But every AAA game I've been on, they give you the time to do what you got to do, but they expect you to be able to come in and do the job and knock it out in a take or two. And if it's not a take or two, maybe 3 or 4. Anyway, I guess we are tired too. Talking to me, yes. I got back from Dragon Con about 11 o'clock Monday night. And if you've been to a convention, every night there's a party. And even if you don't go to the party's keeping you awake. And Dragon Con, I know Saturday night they partied till about 4 in the morning. Friday night they took it easy. It was only till about 2:30. And even Sunday night they partied. And your time there is spent either on the floor, meeting fans, signing autographs, taking selfies, and that kind of thing, or you're in a panel talking about this, that, or the other. A lot of times answering questions that really the writers should answer, but that's okay. Uh, so kind of tired when I was there because I wasn't getting enough sleep. And then I got home 11 o'clock and I live in Glendale, had to be in Marina Del Rey, 9 o'clock the next morning. Do you know what LA traffic is like going that 15, 20 miles? I'd have to be there and leave by 7:15 or so. And I had that yesterday and I had it today. So I'm a little tired, man. Okay. Good to see you again. Many blessings. Right back at you, Mark Preston. Hey, Bianca Skinner. What's going on? Evening, everyone. Oh, she's so nice. She says hello to everyone. Isa in Colombia. Great. Linda. I wanted to do children's stories. I listened to Meryl Streep. Her voice is not natural, but fun. I've done Peter Rabbit myself. My voice is a bit English. The character is a bit different. Any suggestions? Thanks, Dave. There are people who may find a variety of voices in them. One of the things about animation and video games is we do have a few types of voices or character voices, or you might name some of your characters so that it's not quite you, but it's a voice that you can live in. And if you can do that, if you can be honest with that voice, with that character, yeah, you can do another voice. You might do another voice and you're doing children's stories and that person could be that or something else. If you can do that and make it consistent and real, great. I would suggest, if it's working for you, Linda, doing an English voice and you're not English, but it works and people are hiring you and they believe it, great. Most of the time when people just create a character voice, but they left out what makes a character, and what makes a character is that life experience. I would suggest, if you are one of those people, and I am, that creates a lot of different voices, give that voice a history. Give that character a history. Where were they born? How old are they? How educated are they? What do they love? What do they hate? What are they afraid of? What's their goal in life? What's their favorite food? You can create and answer more and more and more questions, which gives more and more depth and range to the character you're creating. Name the character. Give them a name. I got a character that I don't get to use much, but I've always loved it. It was based on a friend of my dad's named Roscoe. Yeah, Roscoe, he used to like to smoke cigars and drink whiskey and talk a lot of trash. And, hey, young David, come here, boy. Let me talk to you. You know them girls out there, you only 12 years old now, but by the time you 16, boy, you better be ready. And that was him. I always loved Roscoe. And I know he's no longer with us, but he lives on in me. Now, I don't get to use that character a lot. But if somebody allows me to pull him out, he's there. That sounds more like a red flag to me, although at least the indie area. Yeah, kind of does. Do you have an outtakes file you keep just because it's too funny or embarrassing to delete? I don't, but I know there's some studios that do. Nobody goes into a gig and is mistake-free. I certainly am not. And even when I'm on a roll and everything is going along, there's going to be one sentence, one paragraph, one word, one something that I'm just not going to be able to get. Something gets in my head, and now you're struggling with this, and you have to go over it 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times. I have learned to make the mistake, cuss myself out, and then jump right back into character. So there's some outtakes there that there's some fairly peppery language coming out of me, mostly directed at me, but then I'm right back. But that's just me. Hey, Trisha. Great meeting you at DragonCon. Can't wait to work with you again. Right on, right on, right on. Michael Glover, when you do a long video game project that you're working on for a month or so, do they pay by the session SAG scale or do they put you on a salary? Oh, I wish they'd put me on a salary. No, you get paid by the session. But that's okay. Sometimes you're only going to do, 15, 20 minutes on a session. Oh, we needed to pick up. Well, they're still paying the same amount they would pay me for 4 hours. And a lot of the games now, different than before, you have ongoing characters whose story continues to change and grow in different adventures. So there's some games I've been on for 10 years or so. Playing Vol'jin in World of Warcraft. I've been that guy for about 10 years. And some other games that they keep bringing me back. Dota 2. I did some sessions, 2002, 2000. I don't remember exactly how long ago it was. Well, recently they brought me back to bring these characters back. Wow. All right. Bianca Skinner, if someone only wants to do one take, that's an alert. If they only give you time to read one take and not enough time, yeah, just, Luke, bothers me. That bothers me. Isa, Dave, have you made dubbing to another language, Spanish to English, German to English? And what do you think about this specialty? Very good question. When I was in Colombia, and thanks for the invitation, Isa, one of the things I learned was how big the dubbing market is, especially in Spanish. Most of the big TV shows, cartoons, video games in English are dubbed into Spanish. I was honored by a couple of voice actors there who did my demo. They took my demo and dubbed everything I did in Spanish. And apparently these guys are two of the guys who, when a game that I'm on is dubbed in Spanish, they're two of the guys who do that. So the Spanish market has a lot more experience in the dubbing world. Mostly in the English market, we've been dubbing Japanese cartoons called anime. And that, at this point, is the biggest dubbing. But the world is changing. Thanks to Netflix and a number of shows that are in Spanish and a few other languages that have become popular on Netflix in other countries. They've become popular enough that they've decided we're going to dub these into other languages besides the French or German or Spanish that they're in, or any other language for that matter. And a lot of that dubbing is done now in English. We don't have the dubbing market that they have in Spanish-speaking companies. And Spanish-speaking dubbers and the companies that do them have gotten very, very sophisticated. It's not what we used to think of as dubbing, where you heard something that was dubbed in Spanish, or you saw something that was dubbed in English, like the martial arts movies, and you heard, "I'm going to kill you," and the lip flap doesn't match. We've come a long, long way. So I'm looking forward to seeing the dubbing business from other languages into English grow, because the entertainment world is getting smaller and smaller, and we have so many outlets for entertainment now that they're hungry for entertainment, and it's good for everybody. Because there's lots and lots and lots of TV shows and movies on so many platforms. You got Amazon, you got Hulu, you got Netflix. I think YouTube is starting to do some of their own shows. So that is opening up not only the dubbing world, thanks to Netflix and their international shows, but the creative world in general. Okay. Luke, for example, if a big American video game is about to be released, they expect that the French adaptation to be released as it is globally expected, and we receive the translation sometimes a bit late. That's why, okay. Uh, okay, that explains something. Now, what Luke was talking about in one-shot sessions is trying to beat a deadline. Say a game is coming out, a AAA game is coming out in a worldwide release, and they just don't have quite enough time to get it dubbed into French and Spanish and German and Arabic or whatever. So they're pushing to get it done. I would suggest to them to take the time to make sure you do it right. But we'll see. Thanks for letting me know that, Luke, because that does make just a little bit more sense. Oh, am I freezing now? Michael says I have frozen. I hope I have unfrozen. Lenny Harrison. Oh my goodness! Finally to get to catch you live. I've been in VO for years. I've done commercial narration, e-learning, want to do characters, cartoons, video games, and online comics. Can you offer advice on how I can? Yeah. You want to do the same things to get into animation and video games that you did to get into commercials and narration and anything else you did. You want to do some studying of the genres, and you want to get a good demo and develop some facility in that area, enough to get started, because I guarantee once you get started working, you learn so much. You learn on the job just by osmosis. That 6 months of working will be like 5 years of training. But yeah, you want to get a demo. People want to, the people who are hiring you for video games or cartoons don't care about your commercials or your narration or your TV promos. They want to hear you in the genre in which they're going to hire you. So you got to have that demo to get it done. The only people who don't get to do that are, say, the major stars from television and movies. And one other group, some of the internet sensations. And I cannot tell you how many times I've walked into a session and the director and the engineers are complaining about some internet sensation, some YouTube star, some Instagram model that has 1 million followers or however many followers, and the gaming company, the developer thought, oh, this would be a great idea. Think of the people that follow him or her, and they get them in the studio and they have no talent, no ability to do this. This is not easy to do. You have to have the skills. You have to develop the skills. You have to be a good actor. And after a while, they're just not going to put up with it. Oftentimes, I was having a discussion with the director yesterday, talking about this exact same thing. When a gaming company thinks it's a great idea to get that, Twitter star or YouTube star, Instagram star, and in the studio, and the director will tell them, look, I don't think it's a good idea. They're not going to be able to act. They bring the person in anyway. They have one session and then they're fired because they can't do it. They can't do it. So you get your skills together so you can. Lenny Harrison. Oh, yeah, that was you. Lenny, and we met a year ago in VO Atlanta, 2014. Oh, yeah, a few years ago. Hey, Kabir, what's going on? Stefan Johnson, Lenny here. Should I do characters that have been done like Batman, Thanos, or should I go with created characters? You could do both. On your demo, you don't have to name your characters. You don't have to say, well, this is Lenny doing Thanos. This is Lenny doing Batman. Instead of doing Batman per se, do a hero that sounds like Batman. If you've got 5 to 10 seconds of dialogue in a scene that you're doing, you don't have to say that it's Batman. It doesn't have to be Batman. It just has to be a hero character that has that same kind of feel. You don't have to say this is Thanos doing this. You don't have to use Thanos's lines, but you can have that same feel, and that's what you want to do. I run into a lot of people that want to do animation, and they'll say, well, I do a great Homer Simpson. Well, too bad. We already got Homer Simpson. Unless you're somebody that is doing an iconic character and the person who did it is dead, and you're better than all the other people who did it, like my buddy Bob Bergen, Porky the Pig. That's not going to make a career for you. And if you talk to Bob would tell you that won't make a career for you either. Being Porky Pig, and boy, does he do a great Porky Pig, is his claim to fame. But he couldn't live on his Porky Pig money. That gets the attention of people. But Bob is a great actor, period, and especially a great animation actor. And he lives on doing lots and lots and lots of different characters that you would never know other than these are the ones he does, who are named this, that, or the other, that he has created. All right. Hey, how does one break into the world of voicing toys? I know, very random question. Actually, it's not that random. Every now and then I'll get a toy audition from my agent. And I think most of them are going to go through there. I don't think I have the voice that matches toys. Usually toy voices are higher and lighter than mine. But if I might be the announcer, matter of fact, I have been the announcer on some voices, but not voices, not toys that talk. And that's two different areas. But I know some people who have voiced the toys themselves. It can be very lucrative, but it can also be a little bit of golden handcuffs. One buddy of mine who's been doing that for a while, he had to spend a year voicing, I forget which toy it was, but a year voicing stuff for a toy, and he was there, 9 to 5 every day for about a year, and it really kept him from doing anything else. And when the gig was done, it was almost like he had to reintroduce himself to the business. Not saying that that's going to happen on every gig, but it can. But if you're interested in doing toys, I would, if you have an agent, let your agent know. If you don't have an agent, I'm not sure how many of those auditions you're going to see on the pay-to-play sites. You might want to create for yourself a voice of toy demo and then start marketing yourself to the toy companies. Well, hello. Let's see. Oh boy, 6:53 already. I've been running my mouth a long time today. Anyway, let's start thinking about wrapping up here. Okay, Dave, good idea. A reminder, if you're interested in private lessons with me, go to my website, davefennoy.com, little tab at the top, study VO, and you can book yourself. I promise you two things. One, you'll be a better voice actor afterwards, and two, I'm going to have to reschedule from time to time because I work a lot. Michael Lever, 9 to 5 a day doing a toy voice at scale per session. Yeah, it once again, it's lucrative. There was a point, I'll tell you a story. There was a time I was a late night show announcer. It was a great little gig. It was 5 days a week for about half an hour. But I was in the running for one of the late night show gigs a number of years ago. And I was really disappointed when I didn't get it. And my agent said, well, if you got this, the only time you'd be able to go on vacation or travel is when the show's on hiatus. And he said, it's good money, but that's all you would be doing. And I went, okay, yeah. I really like the fact that I get to do a variety of things. I'm probably at this point in my career best known for video games, but I like the fact that I do narration, I do commercials, and I do TV promos. That's still all a part of my career. And I like it that way. Let's see. Thomas, I think I may need an agent now. I need to schedule some time with you to discuss this and a ton of other things. Well, you know how to find me. Always glad to be here for Bianca. Always glad to be here with you and learn. Always thankful for it. Excellent. Well, you know what? I enjoy this. I hope it is benefiting people. People helped me when I was coming along, and I think the best thing in the world I can do is, give it back. Give it back. And so, until next Wednesday, and I'm not quite sure when I'll get Jill Kershaw in here, because she has some great stories to tell about the kinds of mistakes people make when auditioning that you will all benefit from. So I'll let you know when we're going to have her. And I guess that about does it for another episode of Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. See you next time. Bye.